Isolated from the rest of the world, Australia is not without its fair share of cryptids. In this video, I aim to cover some of the most famous cryptids in Australia, including the Bunyip, the Hawkesbury River Monster, Hook Island Sea Monster, the Yowie, Megalania, alien big cats, and Thylacine. One of the most renowned Australian cryptids is the Bunyip, said to inhabit or dwell near bodies of water, such as swamps, billabongs, creeks, riverbeds, and waterholes. This creature, which bears some similarity to the Celtic kelpie, a water horse known to inhabit the lochs of Ireland and Scotland, might also have connections to other water-based mythological beings such as the Orkney Nuggle, the Swedish Bakahassin, the Norwegian Naken, and the Scottish Each-Wisch. The term Bunyip is derived from the Wemba language and translates to devil or evil spirit. According to Australian Aboriginal folklore, a legend recounts the tale of a man named Bunyip who violated the rainbow serpent's most sacred law by consuming his totem animal. Banished by the spirit Bayami, this man transformed into an evil water spirit that enticed tribespeople, especially women and children, and their livestock into the water to feast upon them. The Bunyip is described as aggressive and dangerous, possessing supernatural attributes like the power to control or induce floods or droughts and the ability to bring death or misfortune to victims who somehow managed to escape its clutches. Those who disregarded the terrifying, thunderous booming sound of the monster and ventured near the Bunyip's abode were most likely devoured. Instead of consuming their victims immediately, the Bunyip would take them captive, force them to work, and then devour them later. There are purportedly up to 9 regional variations of bunyips scattered across the continent, which accounts for the lack of consensus on its appearance. In cryptozoology, the bunyip is typically categorized into 2 types most frequently cited, the long-necked bunyip and the dog-faced bunyip. The long-necked type is described as a shy, amphibious herbivore with a long neck, a mane, and prominent tusks. This variety has primarily been reported in New South Wales, where it is often seen swimming and is said to possess an awkward, shambling gallop. The dog-faced type is generally depicted as a seal-like creature with a bulldog-like face. Throughout the 1800s and early 1900s, the bunyip was regularly sighted in lakes and rivers in New South Wales, Victoria, the Australian Capital Territory, and Tasmania. More recent sightings have been reported in the areas around Lake George and Lake Bathurst. There is a prevailing theory that the bunyip may be a surviving diprotodon, a giant sloth that had been extinct for over 20,000 years based on certain fossilized bones. In 1846, along the banks of the Murrumbidgee River in New South Wales, a peculiar skull was found. Experts in the vicinity determined it to be the skull of something unknown to science. A year later, this skull was briefly displayed as the bunyip at the Australian Museum in Sydney before mysteriously disappearing from the museum's collection. The second cryptid is Australia's own version of the Loch Ness Monster, known as the Hawkesbury River Monster. Locally referred to as Mullywonk, which translates to giant water snake, this enigmatic creature was depicted in ancient cave art by the Derek tribal Aborigines of New South Wales. The artwork portrays the creature with a snake-like head, a lengthy neck, a substantial body, 2 sets of flippers, and an eel-like tail, bearing a striking resemblance to a plesiosaur. Records of sightings of this creature extend back to pre-colonial times and continue into recent years. These sightings have been reported along the river, spanning from Wiseman's Ferry at the western end to the expansive Broken Bay Brisbane waters area at the river's mouth. Notably, along the riverbanks, there have been reports of peculiar slide marks, evoking thoughts of crocodile trails. In the 19th century, as white colonists began to settle in these regions, the local population cautioned them against venturing too close to the river, as they believed a large, sharp-toothed beast dwelled there. Renowned cryptozoologist and writer Tony Healy embarked on expeditions along the river to investigate the existence of this mysterious creature. He collected numerous accounts regarding the monster, including an incident from 1924, described in the local edition of the Windsor and Richmond Gazette. W.J. Riley and his brother witnessed what they termed a Titanic seahorse for 15 minutes while strolling along the terrace in Windsor. They described the creature as measuring 2.5 to 3 feet in depth, about 5 to 6 feet in length, with a yellowish or sandy hue and a distinctive square-looking fish tail. The Hawkesbury River Monster has been linked to incidents involving attacks on animals and boats. For instance, in 1949, a young couple observed the monster extend its long neck from the water, seize an adult bull grazing on the shore, and drag it into the river. In 1950, a local fisherman encountered a massive disturbance beneath his boat. The water surrounding the vessel darkened, rippled, and swirled. The object underneath the boat appeared to strike its bottom, causing the lightweight aluminum craft to catapult up to 10 feet into the air. Simultaneously, the fisherman was thrown into the water. As he swam to the shore, he saw the monster approaching, but, to his relief, it altered its course and submerged. Subsequently, he refrained from fishing in that area. Unfortunately, not all fishermen have been as lucky. In the 1980s, several fishing boats were discovered overturned with their occupants mysteriously absent, making the Hawkesbury monster the prime suspect. The most recent documented sighting of this creature occurred in 2009 when cryptozoologist Rex Gilroy observed, through binoculars, a dark shadow approximately 12 meters long with an elongated neck surfacing near Wiseman's Ferry. Monsters are not just found in lakes, but also in the seas. In Queensland's Hook Island, a colossal aquatic creature resembling a giant tadpole is the focus of a compelling photograph taken by Robert Le on December 12, 1964. This photo was taken in an era predating deepfakes and Photoshop, and it quickly gained worldwide attention, never definitively debunked. According to the account, Sarek was fishing in Stonehaven Bay when his wife noticed an unusual, dark shape in the water. This enigmatic entity was purported to be at least 75 to 80 feet, 20 meters, in length. Initially, they believed this creature to be lifeless. However, they soon discovered they were mistaken. Sarek's first mate, De Jong, summoned the courage to dive into the water with the intention of filming the creature. On approach, the serpentine entity opened its mouth and started to move towards them. Overwhelmed by fear, they rapidly retreated to the safety of their boat. Upon returning to their vessel and regaining their composure, they found that the creature had vanished. Sarek and those on board also noticed a wound on the creature's right side. They later speculated that the creature might have sustained this injury from a ship's propeller in deeper waters and sought refuge in the shallow lagoon to recover. Next, we move to the land cryptids. The most famous of them is Australia's equivalent of Bigfoot, called the Yowie. What sets the Yowie apart from other Bigfoot species are its two large fawn-like canines. The Yowie is often characterized as one of the more aggressive Sasquatch species, with reports of it tearing the heads off kangaroos and dogs. There have also been sightings of Yowies attacking humans, although such incidents are rare. Descriptions commonly depict the Yowie as being between 6 to 9 feet tall, featuring a large red mouth and talon-like claws. Typically, it is covered in brown or reddish fur. Despite being bipedal creatures, there have been reports of them running on all fours. Since it exhibits many primate-like features, it may be an undiscovered species of great ape, possibly related to Gigantopithecus blacki, or even a prehistoric human-like creature such as Homo erectus. There are documented sightings of the Yowie as recent as 2020 and 2021, all within the state of Queensland. The small rural town of Kilcoy is renowned as the Yowie capital of Australia, boasting more Yowie sightings than any other location in the country. In 1979, two Brisbane students claimed to have encountered a Yowie measuring 2 to 3 meters in height and even attempted to shoot it. Plaster molds were made of the footprints found, measuring 50 centimeters in length and 15 centimeters in width. Within a year, a Yowie statue was erected in Yowie Park by the locals, although it quickly deteriorated due to exposure to the hot sun. A third and current version of the statue was erected in 2018. Unfortunately, though the chances of encountering an actual Yowie are probably slim to none, visitors to Kilcoy can content themselves with photographs of the Yowie statue and enjoy some of the best beef burgers in Australia. Next, we have the large lizard and dinosaur-like cryptids. Megalania, scientifically identified as Megalania prisca or Varanus priscus, was a colossal monitor lizard that roamed Australia during the Pleistocene era, spanning from approximately 2.6 million years ago to as recently as 23,000 years ago. This temporal overlap would have brought early Aboriginal settlers in Australia into contact with this immense carnivore. Aboriginal cave paintings depict a reptilian creature of enormous proportions, dwarfing the size of a human. Some of these depictions narrate stories of reptiles that brought fire and destruction with them. Megalania hold the distinction of being the largest terrestrial lizard to have ever existed, boasting a length exceeding 35 feet and a weight of up to 8,300 pounds. This stands in stark contrast to the largest known lizards today, the Komodo dragons native to Indonesia, which reach lengths of up to 11 feet and weights of up to 370 pounds. Australia's largest known monitor lizard is the Parandi, Varanus giganteus, believed to grow up to 9 feet, 3 meters, in length and weighing 88 pounds, 40 kilograms. Nonetheless, some individuals believe that Megalania has not actually gone extinct but continues to inhabit the vast expanse of Australia. Numerous large lizards have been sighted and given various names, including Megalania, giant goannas, Beringer, and the Euroa beast, a 30-foot giant lizard that terrorized the town of Euroa in 1890, each with some minor variations in appearance. For instance, in 1985, when a Beringer was sighted in Roper River, the 20-foot-long creature was described as being covered in feathers. In 1979, Australian cryptozoologist Rex Gilroy investigated reports of enormous tracks found in a recently ploughed field by a Moruya farmer. Although many of the tracks had been damaged by rain, Gilroy managed to create a plaster cast of one, noting its striking resemblance to tracks that might be left by a Megalania. In January 2008, he discovered similar lizard-like tracks on a forest trail located roughly 185 miles from Moruya. Fossil reptile specialist Ralph Molnar, who briefly discussed Megalania sightings in his book Dragons in the Dust, 2004, reported examining what appeared to be an unfossilized hip bone of a Megalania. This bone could have been between 1 and 200 years old, although he cautioned that the perceived freshness might be due to the medium in which the remains were preserved, and they could be as old as other recognized Megalania fossils. Reports of monitors as long as 30 feet, 9 meters, have emerged from various regions, including the Kuranda forests in northern Queensland, tropical rivers and lakes, the mountain scrublands of New South Wales, the area around the Murray River, and near Lake Alexandrina in Victoria. However, most experts maintain skepticism regarding these Megalania sightings due to the considerable breeding population required, which would be challenging to conceal. Recent findings concerning Megalania's relative, the Komodo dragon, offer a potential solution to the breeding population dilemma. In 2006, it was discovered that Komodo dragons could reproduce through parthenogenesis, a process where unfertilized eggs laid by a female can develop and hatch without male involvement. Nevertheless, this process only produces male offspring for one generation. It does, however, suggest that a viable breeding population of Megalania may be smaller than previously assumed. Now, let's delve into ABCs, which stands for alien big cats. There are various regional examples of these mysterious creatures. Here, we will provide 3 as examples. In Queensland, there is the Queensland tiger, often described as an arboreal and notably aggressive cat-like animal, approximately the size of a medium dog. It boasts a striped coat and is typically found in northern Queensland, from Cairns to Cardwell, in southeastern Queensland, from Biggendon to Tamborine Mountain. First reported in 1871, the Queensland tiger is famous for the substantial number of specimens that were supposedly killed but seldom retained by settlers and explorers. Over 200 accounts of sightings of the Queensland tiger have purportedly been recorded since the early 19th century. However, as these creatures were regarded as pests by farmers, many of them were killed. While this cryptid was one of the creatures closest to official recognition, its existence was regrettably never substantiated. Sightings have become less frequent since the late 20th century, to the point that some cryptozoologists consider the Queensland tiger as extinct. The prevailing theory regarding the identity of this cryptid is that it is or was a modern descendant of the Pleistocene marsupial lion, Thylacoleo carnifex, or a smaller relative. Accounts of the Queensland tiger have remained notably consistent for over a century. It is almost universally likened to a cat between 4 and 5 feet, including the tail, which is described as long and thick, sometimes featuring a tuft on the tip. Heavier than a domestic cat, it is often described as having tusks or fangs, which, in one account, were compared to saber teeth. Its eyes are said to be green, and its ears resemble those of a cat. In New South Wales, particularly in the Blue Mountains region, you can encounter the warrigal. Though it is also likely to be a marsupial lion like the Queensland tiger, it is likely a distinct species. It is reported to have a more lion-like appearance, featuring a body that measures 6 to 7 feet in length and distinctive large, protruding teeth. Since the 1800s, local residents in areas around the Blue Mountains, Lithgow, Mudgee, Buderim, and Hawkesbury in Australia have reported sightings of large, panther-like cats known as the Blue Mountains panther or the Lithgow panther. These creatures have been spotted prowling the edges of bushland and even within the inner city. Since 1998, over 560 reports of panther activity have been documented in the Hawkesbury, Blue Mountains, and Lithgow areas. Of course, it would be remiss not to mention the thylacine, more commonly known as the Tasmanian tiger, the largest carnivorous marsupial characterized by its dog-like appearance. Thylacines were once widely distributed, spanning from New Guinea to what is now Tasmania. However, approximately 10,000 years ago, with the arrival of Aboriginal people in Australia, dingoes were introduced. This led to competition for food resources and eventually resulted in the extinction of thylacines on the mainland 3,000 years ago, with the surviving population confined to Tasmania. In the 1800s, as the first European settlers reached Tasmania, a series of mysterious sheep killings were attributed to thylacines, prompting a bounty to be placed on these creatures and hunters to actively pursue them. By 1928, various committees, including the Tasmanian Advisory Committee for Native Fauna, advocated for the protection of thylacines, but it wasn't until August 1936 that legal protections were finally put in place. Tragically, by this time, it was too late. In 1930, the last known wild thylacine was shot and killed by Wilf Batty. In 1933, a thylacine named Benjamin was captured and sold to the Hobart Zoo. In September 1936, Benjamin succumbed to the neglect of volunteer zookeepers. With Benjamin's death, the thylacine is widely believed to have become extinct. This status was officially confirmed in 1986 when thylacines were declared extinct by the International Union for the Conservation of Nature and the Tasmanian government. Even after being declared extinct, sightings continued to be reported from Tasmania, mainland Australia, and New Guinea. The Australian Rare Fauna Research Association reports having 3,800 sightings on file from mainland Australia since the 1936 extinction date, with sightings most frequently reported in southern Victoria. Due to the uncertainty surrounding the species' possible survival, the thylacine is sometimes regarded as a cryptid.